Welcome to Today in Esports on the Global Gaming Network channel, where we get the pleasure to go over everything that's going on in the world of esports across the entire world. We got plenty to dive into this weekend with Call of Duty action concluding ahead of LAN. We're going down to Texas. First Stand is going on across the entirety of the week and continuing on into next. ESL Pro League is ramping up. All of that and some more. My name is Andy. Joined with me, as always, is Chris. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing great. As you said, we have a major, we have playoffs, we have First Stand, a lot to cover. I'm ready to get into it.
Well, without further ado, let's jump on into everything that's going on this weekend, starting off first with Call of Duty. As we were stating earlier, Major 2 qualifiers are ending this weekend before we take on to Texas for the upcoming Major 2 that will be played on LAN. If you're unaware, the way that the qualifiers do work, you earn CDL points, and that places the 12 teams within a certain seed to then compete within the upcoming tournament. Sometimes minors, in this case, would be a major. It's a double elimination tournament, so let's dive on into this weekend's matches. There aren't too many matches with permutations to shake up the standings, minus maybe 1 or 2, but last week of matches before LAN has its weight for sure, with some teams sitting in and out of the bubble. Basically, you want to be in the top 8. That'll guarantee you to start in the winner's bracket side. Starting underneath the top 8, that means that you're starting in the lower bracket, so you don't get that second life in this double elimination bracket. LAG mates, Optic, and Vegas Falcons are all out of contention for making it into the winner's bracket and are guaranteed to start lower round 1 of the upcoming major. This is extremely alarming for the hosting team Optic Texas as narratives continue to pile on about their turmoil post-champs win in the previous title. It goes without saying, the higher seed, the easier your bracket should be. Vancouver Surge are the only team that can uproot Atlanta FaZe from the second seed position. Let me explain more. Vancouver Surge have been on fire since adding in SMG Neptune, and honestly, it's leveled up the team mostly in their respawns, their search and destroy has been quite good for quite some time. Follow on with their second place at Miner 1 and the statement made in week 1 with the series win over Atlanta FaZe. They find themselves in a great position for the final week of qualifiers. We thought it was a honeymoon phase with a new player. We've seen it all before, but beating FaZe, then taking Thieves to a map 7 in the minor, we thought it was over truly following an 0-3 loss in the qualifier back post-Minor 2 tournament to the Thieves, but it just simply was not the case, as Vancouver Surge were testing out maps versus the Thieves in that qualifier match, and didn't look too bad on the Major 1 hard vetoes, if I'm being candid. Like FaZe, the Surge are 4-1 and have 2 matches this weekend to make things more interesting. Judging how Atlanta FaZe have LAG mates in Cloud9 New York this weekend, FaZe should go 2-0 on the finish this qualifier stage 6-1, meaning Surge would have to do the same. Surge's matches are what we are going to be focusing on this weekend to see if they can get the second seed away from the Atlanta FaZe. Vancouver's first match is going to be up against Toronto Ultra, who are more than likely not to have the stars aligned for them to get the second seed, as they would have to win out here and hope that FaZe lose both of their series this upcoming weekend. Not really likely, but they could at very least stop Vancouver from getting the second seed if they play their map vetoes right. Last time these two teams faced off was during the Surge's massive Minor 2 run, where Vancouver won 3-0, but the series was close minus the control. That was a 3-0. 24-point difference on the Vault HP, 2-round difference on the Protocol S&D. Surge have been testing maps lately, so let's not put it out of the realm of possibility. Both teams should take this matchup very seriously for seeding purposes. Vancouver's second matchup is against Minnesota Rokkr. That's going down Saturday. If Vancouver beats Toronto, their last matchup to secure the second seed would be against Minnesota, who have been struggling lately. You could truly argue that in this stage, Rokkr have only beaten bottom barrel teams. It'd be a stretch to maybe put Heretics there with Rocker's week 1 win versus Miami post their T3 at Madrid, but their stage 2 hasn't exactly been looking great, and much worse than Minnesota's for sure. They won 3-0 versus Optic and Falcons, but lost 0-3 to both Ravens and FaZe. Ravens exploited holes in Rocker's Skyline hardpoint, while FaZe took advantage of the red card search after losing a round 11 on that venue to the Ravens the week previous. But both Ravens and FaZe beat Rokkr 1-3 on protocol control. The pace and the spawn trap has been a struggle for Minnesota all season, with a dead even round differential at 22-23. They are 3-8 on the map mode combination this season and should avoid playing it here and the weekend if possible. Naturally, talking about Vancouver Surge, meaning that we have to talk about Atlanta FaZe, the one that currently sit at the number 2 seed. They have just as much as an opportunity to finish the stage 6-1 with their matchups. Atlanta FaZe versus LA Gorilla Mates is their first one. Should be an easy 3-0 here, albeit FaZe will use this as an opportunity to take and use it to learn some maps in their veto process against LAG Mates. They're still a team figuring things out, and FaZe are primed to go back-to-back major championships. I'll explain more about that in a bit. Atlanta FaZe's last match is against Cloud9 New York, and this is where things get interesting if FaZe continue to test maps, which surely they will. A lot of the maps that FaZe want to test are Hacienda Surge and Control. These are two very good maps for Cloud9 New York, as they've been getting much better post-Major 1. C9 are currently 4-2 going into their final match versus FaZe on Sunday. It's officially the last qualifier before we pack our bags for Texas. They took the Surge to a map 5, lost 1-6 on the Protocol Surge, and 1-3 in the series versus the Ravens. But consistency for this team has been steadily getting better. Sib has been shooting, and always good to go nuclear for a map or two. FaZe should be careful challenging this team on a square-up map like Hacienda. But it's FaZe. We expect them to handle these two teams just fine. The caveat is that FaZe also finished winning both matchups this weekend, same as Vancouver. The Surge hold that head-to-head over FaZe from their Week 1 win. Just something to keep in mind for seeding purposes. There are other permutations, plenty to go over when it comes down to the 12 teams in the CDL, mostly from the 7th down to the 9th seed. You have Minnesota Rocker, Boston Breach, and the Miami Heretics pretty much all in a tight-knit battle between those 3 seeds. And this weekend sets up nicely for the Boston Breach to be able to work their way into the winner's bracket and to upset maybe the Miami Heretics or even the Minnesota Rocker. Minnesota Rocker has the biggest ask out of all 3 of these teams. As previously stated, they have to face off against the second best team out of the minor and only the second team to beat Atlanta FaZe post-Major 1 in the Vancouver Surge and the number 1 team this split and minor 2 champions, the LA Thieves. Again, things haven't been looking good for Minnesota post-Major 1. They need a win, at least a single series this weekend, to stay in the winner's bracket with their head-to-head over Miami. Which brings me over to the Heretics. Last 2 matches are versus Carolina on Friday and then Boston on Saturday. Miami is at risk at starting in the lower bracket if Rocker can win a single series and Miami lose to Boston on Saturday. Miami have now lost their opening match of each of the minor tournament. It was a 1-3 loss versus FaZe in minor 1 and a map 5 2-3 loss versus the Los Angeles Gorilla Mates in minor 2. Not really something we can totally dive into, but definitely something to keep a feather in your cap about. The stage does not look better for them, albeit a top 3 finish in Madrid for Major 1. 2-3 series record this stage with key losses versus Rocker 1-3, FaZe 1-3, and the Vancouver Surge 1-3. Besides Rocker, you could argue they've only lost to top teams this stage, I suppose. I imagine that Carolina locks in and takes care of Miami handedly in their Friday series to truly set the stage for the 2-4 matchup versus the Boston Breach on Saturday. Which brings me on to the Breach. Boston is right on the bubble, but from the outside looking in. Most were shocked to see Breach take FaZe to a map 5 in their last qualifier. Sure, FaZe are testing maps, but Cammy was going nuts and aiding the team in their success to a 6-2 Hacienda map 2 and a 9-second showstopper on the Hacienda hardpoint 2. Boston, as I mentioned, has one last qualifier match versus Miami, whom, as stated, have been struggling in this stage. If Boston wins here, they are winner's bracket bound and could boast a bigger point dispersion post-Major 2, which the org desperately needs. There are other key matchups to keep in mind across the entirety of the weekend. These are just some of the teams that are mostly in and out of the bubble that could break in to make a better storyline for the Major. But on Sunday, we're back to the good old-fashioned Burger Bowl, baby. We got Los Angeles Gorilla Mates going up against Optic Texas. That's right, you heard it best. The defending champions of last week's Burger Bowl now going up against newcomer Optic Texas. Should be an absolute banger. I mean, at the end of the day, look, Los Angeles Gorilla Mates are more than likely to be coming into the series off a hot loss versus Atlanta FaZe this Saturday before the Sunday afternoon escapade. And going into the weekend, LAG Mates are 1-4 with a 6-15 map count, with that one series and 3 of those 6 maps won, all from the Falcons' last week's Burger Throwdown. As previously mentioned, LAG Mates are amidst figuring it the F out with their new roster. No matter what, the fans of General Mates will back this team, but getting a few wins and placings for their diehard fans, it would be nice. And speaking of all that, how about the Green Wall? They're looking like some hot 0-5, 0-15 this stage. The only series win they have in recency is a 3-1 win versus the Vegas Falcons, round 1 of Minor 2. Optic are hosting Major 2 next weekend, by the way, and just made a massive change back to their World Championship roster from last season after Hook had stepped in and played quite well. But the team is still clearly struggling and simply cannot put it together when they get several 3 or 4 dead in respawn or an advantage in any search and destroy. They're 14-30 in rounds for search and destroy this very stage, which is uncharacteristic for this team entirely. Speaking of these two teams, there are obvious storylines that come along with it, specifically for the LA mates. They, unfortunately, going through all of their roster woes, have been playing around with is Pristo or is Skies better for this team ever since bringing Lunars up from Challengers. Skies has taken to stream to show off his ranked prowess as well, and had this to say for his community.
Just like a few times, my contract ends in a month and a half because I signed a termination thing. So I think at worst.
Is this the end for Skies on the LA Gorilla mates? Is there any team that's out there for the CDL that could benefit from the World Champs AR and what he could bring to the table in his veterancy? Only time will tell. As I'd mentioned earlier, Optic Texas are hosting Major 2. Things continue to look very, very bad for the Green Wall. Their results versus Los Angeles Thieves going into this matchup versus LAG, I'm already assuming will probably be in 0-3, and LAT will probably win that series quite handedly. It's unfortunate to say because there needs to be an answer for why the world champion team just this past season is struggling this much in this current stage of Call of Duty. At this moment in time, at the halfway mark, they're already under threat to not make champs. That is very uncharacteristic, to say the least, out of the 4 of them. Some answers definitely need to be made.
Thank you, Andy, for that rundown of Call of Duty. Can't wait to see what happens in the major coming up. Let's go ahead and shift our attention to Counter-Strike. We'll see how those matches have been playing out this week. Taking a look at the round 4 high matches, first we'll start with Mongrels versus 3D Max. Map 1 was on Dust and was picked by 3D Max. The first half, the Mongrels were on the counter-terrorist side. Mongrels' defense was masterful and won the half 9-3. In the second half, when teams swapped side, the Mongrels were now on the attacking side. They go 4 rounds 2-1, winning the map 13-4. Mongrels Sinzu and 9-10 would go 19-8 and 18-5 respectively in the dominating map 1 win. Mongrels got the second map choice and they brought the fight to Ancient. First half, Mongrels started on the terrorist side, meaning they would attack first. Mongrels would continue their brilliance when 8-1 first half. Mongrels Blitz would end the half 12-7 and the only player to hit double-digit kills during that first half. In the second half, the sides would swap. 3D Max would only win 3 rounds. Blitz and Sinju dropped both 8 and 10 kills respectively during that half alone. Mongrels would take the map 13-7 and win the series 2-0.
Second high match was Mal's versus Liquid. Map 1 was Liquid's choice, and they would take it to Ancient. First half was Mal's on the counter-terrorist side, where Mal's Sphinx had a great first half going 12-6 with a 50% headshot ratio. It wasn't enough as the half was still ending 7-5 with Liquid in the lead. Once Mal's got on the offensive side, though, during the second half, takeover mode was initiated. Team Liquid struggled, only getting 17 kills to Mal's 36. Liquid would only win a single round during the second half. Zershin had a 3.0 KD going 15 for 5. Mal's would win map 1 13-8. Sphinx had a hard second half, and he only got 1 kill. But it was a headshot, so the headshot rate was 100%, so that's dope. Zershin would be the best player of map 1 with 24 kills, 6 assists, and 12 deaths, while averaging 109 damage per round. With Mal's up 1-0, they'd also get the luxury of choosing the stage for map 2. Nuke would be Mal's choice. First half, Liquid would do their best to hold off Mal's aggro, but were having a tough time doing so. Mal's would lead 8-4 at the half. Sphinx would continue with their great series versus Liquid with a great first half going 16 for 8 with an 81% headshot ratio. In the second half, Liquid couldn't crack Mal's defense. Mal's fully dominated Liquid during the second half. Liquid would only get 11 kills this half in a total to Mal's 25. Malice would win map 2 13-4 and the series 2-0 with a strong performance. Spinks would be the best player of map 2 and the series, getting 21 kills, 3 assists, and 11 deaths in the second map, and only had a 57% headshot ratio, but had a high 110 average damage per round. Went 34 and 22 in total with 9 assists across the series with an overall 62% headshot ratio. NAF would obviously be the worst player of the game on Liquid. He would only get 12 kills and a total of 29 deaths and 8 assists. He did get 6 headshots though, so 50% headshot ratio. Yay!
The last match of the high series would be G2 versus Na'Vi. Map 1 would be on Mirage, Na'Vi's choice. This map is incredibly terrorist side favor, so you best be ready to square up. Coincidentally, Na'Vi would start on the terrorist side. Na'Vi's bit would start the game with a 1v2 clutch in the first round in a post-plant situation. Na'Vi's JL would be on top of his team, getting 10 kills with only 3 deaths and having a 50% headshot ratio. Along with the previous, Na'Vi would be up in the first half 10-2. G2's Hunter struggled in the first half, getting no kills, 4 assists, and 10 deaths. In the second half, Na'Vi just needed 3 rounds to win map 1. JL and Wonderful would carry Na'Vi on the counter-terrorist side, getting 17 kills between them, where the other 3 were combined for 11. G2, Mobs, MD, and Monzi tried to hold their team up in winning 7 rounds in the second half, but it simply was not enough after such a deficit in the first. Na'Vi would win map 1 13-9. JL would be the best player on map 1, getting 18 total kills and just 13 deaths. He would also have a 50% headshot ratio. Map 2 on Ancient, G2 down 1 map, had their hopes to extend this series with a win. The first half, G2 would be on the terrorist side. G2 would start off strong, getting the first 3 rounds. Na'Vi would answer back after getting their econ back line, winning the next 7 rounds. The first half would end 5-7 with Na'Vi being up by 2. Bit would have a great performance on the counter-terrorist side, getting 12 kills and only 6 deaths with 4 assists. He would also have a 67% headshot ratio. Second half with a 2-round lead in the playoffs here for Na'Vi. Na'Vi absolutely dominated the second half with only dropping a single round to G2. Alexa would have a 1v3 clutch in round 16 and defuse. JL would pop off, getting 13 kills with only 2 deaths and having an insane 77% headshot ratio. G2 would have a horrible half, only getting 18 kills in total compared to Na'Vi's 30. Na'Vi would win map number 2 13-6 and end the series 2-0, advancing to playoffs. JL would be the player of map number 2 in the series, having 25 total kills, only 9 deaths and 3 assists. Having 43 kills in total, only 22 deaths, and holding a 53% headshot ratio, the next closest person in the series in kill count was Wonderful at 28.
Moving into round 4 lower matches. Loser of these matches will unfortunately go home. The first match would be Saw versus Gamer Legion. Map 1 would take place on Nuke. This was chosen by Saw. Nuke is considered a counter-terrorist sided map by most, but good for terrorists. Execution can control the map. First half had Saw starting off on the terrorist side for map 1. Saw demonstrated an insane terrorist side execution and won 10 out of the 12 rounds in the first half. They would get 50 kills in the first half, and Gamers Legion only getting 27. Angel would get 14 kills, 3 deaths, and 4 assists with 57% headshot ratio within the first half. The second half, with the side swap, Saw would now be on the counter-terrorist side. They would just need to win 3 rounds to win the map 1. In round 1, Cjot would get a crazy 4 headshot kills using dual elites defending the B bomb site. Saw would bring the game to match point after winning the first 2 rounds, but Gamers Legion would win the next 3 rounds, but Saw would win the final. Saw would win map 1 13-5. AGL would be the best player for map 1, going 18-5 with 5 assists and a 50% headshot ratio. Map 2's venue would be Inferno. It would be Gamers Legion's pick. The first half would be back and forth with both teams performing. It would be dead even tied 6 apiece. Cjot would again get a 4 headshot dual elite kills in the first round of map 2. Multiple players have a great half, but Rez looked like he had the best out of all of them, going 12 for 7. In the second half, Gamer Legion showed why they chose this map. Gamers Legion would win the first 6 rounds straight on the counter-terrorist side and putting map 2 up to game point. Rez would get a 4 quick M4 kills on the mid for a defensive round in 18, but Saw would fight back, winning 3 in a row to try to make a comeback happen, but Gamers Legions were pretty good in relentless in making sure it was closing out here with a round win in round 22. Saw would win map 2, tying up the series 1 apiece. Rez would be the best player of this map, getting 24 kills, dying 12 times with 4 assists. Map 3, the decider, would be on Ancient. It's the last map. Loser goes home. In the first half, we would see Gamers Legion having a fantastic control on the counter-terrorist side. PR on Gamers Legion would have an amazing first half, getting 18 kills and only having 5 deaths. He would have a 1v2 clutch on round 5 in a post-plant scenario. Gamers Legion would be up to 9-3 within the first half, but Ancient is a counter-terrorist-sided map. So going into the second half, Gamers Legion locked in, and they looked like they were going to be closing out the map quickly. They would win the first couple rounds of the terrorist-sided, but Saw would show why this map is a counter-terrorist-sided map. Saw would win 5 rounds straight, but Gamers Legion would win the next 2 to win the map and the subsequent series. Gamers Legions would win map 3 13-8 in the series 2-1. PR would have an amazing game on map 3, where he would get a 21 kills to 10 deaths and have a 52% headshot ratio. He had a few clutch moments through the series to help secure their victory. Gamers Legion winning the series 2-1 to continue on to the gauntlet of the lower matches and making it into the playoffs and eliminating Saw. Rez would be the best player of the series, where he had such a strong impact with his team to push for the victory. He would get 54 kills and a total of 38 deaths with 15 assists.
Next match, we would see Eternal Fire versus Pain Gaming. Map 1 would take place on Nuke, which was a pick from Pain. The first half, Pain would start on the T side. Eternal Fire would battle with Pain Gaming in the first half, keeping it close 5-7, with Pain Gaming being up 2 rounds. Winning 5 rounds on CT on Train is a strong start, with it being a T-sided favored map. In the second half, Eternal Fire would capitalize being on the T side. Pain would win the first 2 rounds, but then it would be Eternal Fire who would win the next 8 in a row. Santris on Eternal Fire would get 10 kills and only 6 deaths in the second half, but would have an 80% headshot ratio. Major would have a rough half, only getting 3 kills and 5 deaths, but his team would carry him into the win. Eternal Fire would win map 1 13-9. Santris would be the top player in map 1 with 19 kills in total, 14 deaths, 4 assists, with an impressive 79% headshot ratio. Map number 2 would take place on Inferno, Eternal Fire's pick. The first half would have some back and forth rounds, but Eternal Fire would have some win streaks. Joda would have a very strong first half, carrying his team going 14-4. Major again would have a rough half where he only got 2 kills, but he did get a 7 assists. Eternal Fire would be up 8 rounds to 4 at the end of the first half. Moving into the second half, Pain would win the first 3 rounds, showing some life. In round 13, KUs would have a clutch 1v2 in the post-plant situation to win the round. Round 17, Major would also have a clutch 1v2 on the counter-terrorist side in the pre-plant situation. Eternal Fire would shut this down, winning the last 5 rounds straight. Eternal Fire would win map 2 13-7. Joda would have a dominating performance on map 2 and would go 24, 9, and 5. Eternal Fire would win the series 2-0. The player of the series had to have been Joda with the 36 kills, 24 deaths, and 10 assists.
Next matchup, we'll be breaking down Falcons versus Furia. Map 1 would take place on Train. This would be Furia's choice. In the first half, the Falcons started off with the counter-terrorist side, which allowed them to get an early lead in the game, since this map is surely counter-terrorist favored. Caserito would win a 1v2 clutch to secure the victory of round 7. Magic started off the first half strong by getting 14 kills to 8 deaths and 6 assists. He also had 124 average damage per round. Going into the second half, the Falcons were up by 2 with the score 7-5. This half, Furia would play the counter-terrorist side well, only dropping a few games and getting the score all the way to game point 12-10. Falcons were then able to win the last 2 rounds to push the game into overtime. Chilo was able to get a 4 AK headshot play on defense of round 21 to secure the dub. Magix would answer back in round 23 with 4 kills on the offensive side, 2 with the MAC-10, then 2 with the AK once it was picked up off the ground. In overtime, Furia would start on counter-terrorists, which would allow them to win the first 3 rounds. Falcons would win 1 round during overtime, but lose to Furia on round 5. Furia would win map 1, 16-13. Chilo would be the best player of map 1, getting 26 kills and only 19 deaths with 9 assists. He would have a crazy 81% headshot ratio. Map 2 would happen on Mirage. This would be Falcons' pick in their attempt to extend the series. The first half would be close, with both teams battling for an advantage. The first half would be ending in a tie, 6 apiece. Nico on Falcons would get 12 kills and 7 assists to be up on top of the team for their KD ratios. Caserto on Furia would get 13 kills with 11 deaths, leading their team. In the second half, the teams would continue trading rounds with no clear advantage for either one team. Furia would get the game to match point again 12-10. The Falcons would again win the last 2 rounds, like in map 1, to once again push it to OT. In overtime, the Falcons would win the very first 2 rounds to put themselves up. Furia would win the 3rd round in overtime. The Falcons would win this overtime 4-2. The Falcons would then win map 2 16-14. Nico would be the best player of the series. Nico would be the best player of the map, getting 29 kills and 15 deaths with 5 assists. He would have 57% headshot ratio. With the series tied up 1 apiece, we have our decider map number 3. We would tango on Dust 2. Dust 2 is considered to be heavily T-sided, which means that both teams showed all of that plus some more. Falcons would start the first half on the terrorist side. Nico again would push his team with 13 kills and 9 deaths with 69 nice headshot percentage. He would then get a clutch with a 1v2 post plant on the terrorist side to win round 8. Fallen on Furia would struggle in the first half with only getting 3 kills for their 10 deaths. Falcons would be up 7-5 at the end of the first half. But that meant that Furia knew that their task, they're on the terrorist side. They would win the first 3 rounds straight to bring the game imminently closer. Falcons would then change that by winning the next 5 rounds in a row to put it up on match point. Not surprisingly, Nico would again carry his team this half, going 11-5 on the side swap with 4 assists and 111 average damage per round. Falcons won this map 13-9 and the subsequent series 2-1. Nico would be the player of the series by far, where he got 74 total kills, 48 deaths for his worth, and 22 assists. He would have a total of 57% headshot ratio and a 98 average damage per round across the 3-game series. Furia would be eliminated at this point.
Going into Monday, the final rounds would be played to secure the last spots for playoffs. The first match of the day would be Liquid versus 3D Max. The first map would take place on Inferno, picked by 3D Max. The first half would stay close, with both teams going back and forth, with TL starting on the CT side. TL would end the first half up 7-5. Ultimate would end the first half with 9 kills, 4 deaths, and 7 assists. He would have an 87 average damage per round. Gravity on 3D Max would struggle in the first half, only getting 2 kills and 8 deaths. In the second half, both teams would trade rounds. TLs would battle to win those 6 rounds that they needed. In round 13, Twiz would get an ace to help his team. Ultimate and Twiz would carry Team Liquid to the win in the second half, getting 23 kills between them and only dropping 8 deaths. The second map would take place on Ancient, picked by Liquid. In the first half, Liquid would play on the T side, which is not the favored side for this map though. TL would have a horrible first half, only winning 3 rounds out of the 12. Exercise would get 3 quick USP headshot kills when defending bomb site A. JKS would only get 2 kills and have 9 deaths. 3D Max Exercise would have 8 kills and 4 deaths, being at the top of his team. Moving on to the second half, Team Liquid did not perform much better. They would only win 3 rounds in the second half, and everyone on Team Liquid would have a horrible performance in this half. 3D Max will win the map 2, 13-6. Exercise would have an incredible map with 25 kills and only 11 deaths. He would put out a high 135 average damage per rounds and push his team to the victory. Series 1 tied 1-1, map 3 went to Anubis. In the first half, Team Liquid woke up from their terrible performance in the last map. They would start on the T side and would win 8 rounds to 4 in the first half. Ultimate would get 10 kills and only 5 deaths with 4 assists. Going into the second half, Liquid would continue dominating the map. Liquid would get the next 5 rounds straight to victory. 3D Max would only get 4 kills in total in the second half, where Team Liquid would get 25. Liquid would win map 3 13-4 in a dominating fashion. Team Liquid would then take the series 2-1, eliminating 3D Max. Ultimate would be the player of the series, getting 47 kills, only 33 deaths, and 21 assists.
The second match of the day would be Falcons versus Eternal Fire. The first map would be Inferno. This was Eternal Fire's choice. Falcons would start the first half very strong. Falcons would win 8 rounds to the 4 of the first half, where Kason would get a 16 kills and only have 5 deaths, with an average of 132 damage per round. Kason would have a 4-kill B bomb site hold clutch as well. Going into the second half, something happened to the Falcons. The Falcons would lose all 9 rounds that happened in the second half. Eternal Fire would get 44 kills to the Falcons' horrible 12 kills in total. Eternal Fire would win the first map 13-8. Woxic from Eternal Fire would be the best player of map 1, getting 23 kills, 8 deaths, 3 assists, and 102 average damage per round. The second map would take place on Mirage. This would be Falcons' pick, and much like in their previous match, a hope to extend the series to a Game 3. The Falcons woke up in the first half of the map on the terrorist side with winning 6 rounds straight. The first half would be some close matches, but Eternal Fire would quickly adapt to the Falcons' playstyle and fight back, getting 6 rounds of their own. Nico would fight to carry his team and would have a 1v3 clutch pistol ace in the first round of the entire map. Going into the second half, the rounds would again be close. Woxic would have a 1v2 clutch in a round 16 in a post-plant situation. The Falcons quickly adapted to the Eternal Fire's aggression towards the turnaround of a 5-round loss streak. Eternal Fire would put the game to a match point in round 21, with the Falcons being down 3 rounds. In some incredible rounds, the Falcons were able to win the 3 rounds and make map 2 go into overtime. A common thing throughout the stage 2 is the Falcons pushing games in overtime. The Falcons would then be on the counter-terrorist side going into OT. They would win the 3 rounds on CT to put them up 3 and just need to win 1 terrorist side round to win the map 2. Eternal Fire would win the first round. They were on the counter-terrorist, but Eternal Fire would come to win their second terrorist-sided round. The Falcons would win map 2, 16-13, with Nico being the best player of this map, getting 25 kills, 18 deaths, and just 6 assists. Nico would be the best player of the map number 2, getting 25 kills, just 18 deaths, with 6 assists. Map 3, the decider, would again go to Dust 2. Eternal Fire would start on the terrorist side to get an early advantage. Eternal Fire would play aggressively once again against the Falcons to end the first half 8-4. Eternal Fire's Wakadio would get 14 kills to 4 deaths with a 79% headshot percentage. Nico would struggle, only getting 3 kills with 8 deaths. Going into the second half, the Falcons were down by 4 and needed to win some rounds on the terrorist side. Eternal Fire's counter-terrorist control was so strong for the Falcons in some rounds and would drop multiple rounds trying to breach it. The Falcons would try their best to come back in the second half, but their star player Nico could not perform and only got 2 kills in the second half. Eternal Fire would win 13-9, eliminating the Falcons. Player of the series would be Wakadia, who got 19 kills and only 9 deaths. He had a 74% headshot ratio.
The last match of Stage 2 would be G2 versus Gamer Legion. The first map of the series would be played on Inferno, picked by Gamers Legion. The first half would see a lot of back and forth rounds. G2 would put up a strong defense against GL's T-sided plays, but the first half would end 5-7 with GL being up by 2. Monzi would go 13-7 with 5 assists, having an average damage of 104. Hunter would also get 13 kills with 7 deaths and average 120 damage per round. GL's Rez would get 12 kills, 8 deaths, and hold an 83% headshot ratio. Going into the second half, G2 would need to step up on the T side in order to win the map. G2 would start the second half strong, winning the first 3 rounds, but GL would fight back, ending their winning streak and gain 3 rounds of their own. G2 would then turn up the heat in the second half, going 8-4. G2 would win map 1 in a close 13-11 victory. Monzi would have a fantastic game, gain 25 kills, only 12 deaths, with an average of 109 damage per round and 11 assists. The second map of the series would go to Nuke, picked by G2. Going into the first half, G2 started on the T side, and Gamer Legion would need to have a good CT side to have a chance to win the map. The first half would be close with both teams fighting for a lead. G2 would get the lead in the end, in the first half being up by 2 with the score being 7-5. Monty would get a crazy 4 AK kill in round number 4 and would carry his team in the end with 12 kills, only 6 deaths, and also having an 83% headshot ratio. With G2 being up by 2 going into the second half, Gamer Legion would need to step up on the T side if they wanted to win. The half started with G2 winning the first 3 rounds, but GL did show some signs of life, getting the next 4 rounds in the second half. Gamer Legions did show some signs of life by getting 4 rounds in the second half. Rez would get 4 kills on a B bomb site take to secure round 19. Monzi would have a 3-op kill defense on bomb site A to secure the victory. G2 would win the map 13-9, Monzi again having a fantastic game, getting 23 kills with only 12 deaths and 3 assists. G2 would win the series 2-0, eliminating Gamer Legions. It is no doubt that Monzi would be the player of the series, getting a total of 48 kills, 25 deaths, and 14 assists.
And that's all the matches that happened this past week, but that means that the playoffs are set, and that is happening this upcoming weekend. Here is what that bracket looks like. The opening matchups for quarterfinals will be Vitality going up against Liquid, Na'Vi going up against Mongols, Mal's VG2, and Eternal Fire versus Team Spirit. Should all be very good matchups here for playoffs. At the time of this recording, the matchups are already underway, so make sure that you tune in to our show on Monday to know the conclusion and hear our analysis from all of the matches. But that is everything to do with Counter-Strike. Chris, what's going on with League of Legends, man?
Thank you so much for asking, Andy. First stand has kicked off at LOL Park in Seoul, South Korea on Monday. So we have those matches through Wednesday that we'll cover today. We have a lot of matches to take a look at, so let's jump right into it. Match 1, a classic NA versus EU, saw Team Liquid versus Carmine Corps to start the inaugural First Stand tournament. Game 1 between TL and KC would start slowly as both teams were seemingly adjusting to the change in the lane swap meta. Each team would seem content on farming more until the 7th minute when TL's jungler Umpty invaded KC's red. A well-placed ward on the Krugs and no vision for KC in their tri-bush would allow the bot duo to cover for Umpty during the invade. With the game looking more and more out of reach, KC attempted to jump on the core JJ but would end up losing multiple members in this engagement. Yeon would end the game 10-1-4, pushing his team to a convincing Game 1 victory. KC would need to bounce back in the second game of the series, and they would started well in their pick and ban phase by drafting more of their comfort picks, such as Sejuani for Yike and Azir for Vladdy. In Game 2, it would see a much faster first blood, as KC Vladdy would take advantage of that comfort pick and punish an overstaying APA in the mid lane on the Aurelion Soul. Team Liquid bot lane, though, seemed to want to keep their pressure as they had the Ashen Pantheon, whose early game was very oppressive onto the KC bot lane. The next bit of action would happen in the top lane as both junglers attempted to help their laners. Yike moving in from the topside river would engage onto Impact, unknowing that Umpty was waiting in the topside middle bush, but it would be a miss from Umpty on that Skarner, not stunning Kana, allowing him to flash out of harm's way, and a perfectly placed ult from Yike on the Sejuani would turn the fight in their favor. After getting a double kill, Team Liquid's luck would go from bad to worse as APA, who had used his teleport to get to the top lane to attempt to help his teammates, would get caught out. While trying to kill Kana on the Camille would walk out of range of the Aurelion Soul's damage. Yike would then turn and assist Kana to get his second kill, and overall going 3-0 in that extended team fight. From here on, it was all KC as they would continue to dominate the early game, finding picks on the core JJ and Yeon at separate times to keep control of the map. At the third Drake, Team Liquid would finally find some kills as Umpty was able to cash out KC's target miss at the Dragon during a 1v3 in the bot lane. But their newfound success would not last long after Umpty and core JJ got caught out by Yike and Targamas in the bot lane, with Celecia making his way to the bot to secure 2 more kills. All the while, Kana was able to get a solo kill on the Impact in the top lane for an overall 1-4 in KC's favor. KC's domination would continue as they picked off Team Liquid one by one and started pushing down the lanes. After taking Otacon, KC was comfortably in the driving seat of game number 2, pushed down mid and top, and with no way to answer KC's push, Team Liquid would miss some key ultimates, allowing KC to get 4 kills and end the game. With the series tied 1-1, going into game 3, KC wasted no time using the momentum from game 2 to get a first blood in a 2v2 fight in the bottom. But despite his death, Yeon continued to play aggressively on the Lucian, using the empowered autos with the help of Nami to keep pressure on KC's bot lane. KC attempted to farm their way back in the game and saw a little bit of light when a bot lane tower dive turned into a 1-for-1 kill, giving them a little bit of gold. Team Liquid continued to looking for openings, and after dropping the Rift Herald in the mid lane, they would force Zeri and Yuumi from KC to use their ultimates. Seeing this, would then turn his attention to the KC bot side jungle, where they spot Yike making his way back to his jungle after taking a dragon. With both and APA using their long range ults, they would join Impact on getting a kill on Yike. KC again would fend off multiple fights from Team Liquid to try to make their way back into the game, but while defending mid tower, they would get up a free autocon to Team Liquid. KC was set on getting back in the game by taking multiple objectives. They would attempt to get back in the game by taking objectives and would move to pull the 4th Drake of the game. Although this time, Team Liquid was in position to contest. again would use the Nocturne ult to limit KC's vision, allowing for 2 quick instant kills on Yike and Vladdy. Kana, who had leashed the dragon, would get jumped on by Yeon and Impact to find kill number 3. KC's AD carry battled hard and was able to take down APA, but couldn't find any more as the rest of Team Liquid found the ace, killing Celecia and Taramas. Yeon's aggressiveness would continue, and they would help find picks on to Yike, allowing TL to start the Baron. KC would try to defend the Baron and actually succeed, only giving up 1 kill in the process, but would force TL off, extending the game. TL would finally go back to pushing waves using Umpty's long-range ult. They would find another pick on Kana, who had engaged on APA in the bottom lane. With Kana down, Team Liquid would take an uncontested Baron and start their push for the win. Yike would get caught in the mid lane, resulting in a double kill for Yeon. With 2 members down, Team Liquid easily pushed into the base and finished out the series 2-1. Moving into game number 2 of Monday, we would see Hanwha Life Esports versus Top Esports, the classic China's versus Korea. Game number 1, very much like the Team Liquid versus Carmine Corp's match, would start slowly, with first blood only happening in around 7 minutes. A good roam by Zeka from the mid lane also allowed HLE to get 2 additional kills, making the total 3 kills to 0. The 4th Dragon, TS would find a favorable fight once again, trying to keep the game even, but the game would be swayed after Zeka found a pick on the Vi at the Raptors, and HLE would then turn to the Baron, forcing TS to react. HLE would bait TS into a 4v5 fight, and the result, was in favor of HLE, who got an ace as long as the Baron buff and Otacon. After a few more picks, HLE would finally be able to close out the game. With HLE's carries having a massive game, Zeka on the Azir would be 5-1-4, and Viper on the Ezreal would be 6-0-8. Game 2 would start off quickly, with the first blood happening in the first 3 minutes with a dive by TS junglers Kanavi, but it would actually be support Delight who ends up with the first blood after some great outplaying. Game 2 would kick off quickly. We would see a gank by TS jungler Kanavi onto the bot lane for HLE, but it would actually be a great play by HLE support Delight, who ends up with first blood. After spotting Delight, who made his way into the top side, TS bot lane duo would then jump onto Viper under the tower and end up getting a kill. Following much of game 1, both the teams would stay fairly even through the early game, finding solo picks but unable to take full control. The game would finally start to favor HLE in the 24th minute after an engage that would force TS to react. TS's Nocturne and Orianna attempted to combo Ultimate Viper, but would end up missing, allowing HLE to counter the engagement and ace TS. HLE would then play the map, taking objectives and looking to pressure TS's side. With this pressure, they would cause another unfortunate Nocturne Ultimate combo miss on Viper in the 29th minute, almost exactly identical to the fight in the 24th minute. This time, HLE would only find 4 kills, but it would further extend their lead and allow them to take the Baron buff. TS were able to find a pick on the Zeka, but after committing multiple ultimates to secure the kill, the remaining members of HLE were able to turn the fight and ace Top Esports. With this ace, HLE were able to secure the game and the series 2-0. Moving on to Thursday, we see Pacific finally making their debut with the Flying Oysters facing off versus Carmine Corp. The early game would start off pretty slowly, with both teams trying to jockey for position. Again, as Carmine Corp is already down 1 game, so they're looking to make a redemption for themselves going into this game number 1. Both teams would go back and forth, but it would be finally CFO taking a lead at the 22nd minute, getting 2 kills to 3rd Drake and the Otacon buff to start the game in their favor. It wouldn't take them long into the 25th minute where CFO would find 3 more kills, the Infernal Soul, and then finally take Baron. With this, CFO would walk into KC's base and slowly but surely start to take the game. Doggo led the game on the Ezreal with a whopping 5-0 and 6 KDA and was assisted by Junjia on the Skarner, who ended with a 3-1 and 9 KDA. CFO would then use Baron to walk into KC's base and win game number 1. Game number 2, we do see a change on CFO's side as Driver was subbed in for rest at the top lane. CFO and KC would again start trading kills and try to extend their lead, but much like it would wait until the mid game where CFO's Doggo would start benefiting the most and was 5-0 and 2 around the 18-minute mark. The game would progress slowly for the next 5 minutes until a failed pick from KC on their Baron side jungle. CFO support would turn the fight around at the cost of their life, but give CFO 3 kills and the Autocon buff in the process. CFO would stay in the lead, eventually making their way to the Baron. After getting Baron, they would then push down the bot lane and mid lanes respectively, securing the bot lane inhibitor before getting the second Drake and resetting. After KC's mid laner Vladdy attempted to stop it back from CFO's AD carry, CFO would then turn and kill 3 members of KC while only losing 2 members of their own. After all members of CFO were back alive, they would then go to take the Baron buff once again. After securing the buff, they would then engage on Carmine Corp, resulting in 4 kills. And with mid lane already pushed down, they would use the Empower minions to easily win game number 2, ending the series 2-0. Once again, it was CFO's Doggo with an impressive 13, 0, and 5 KDA in game number 2, leading to an overall 18, 0, and 11 between both games. In the second match of the day, it would be Team Liquid versus Top Esports. Game 1 would start electrically with a Team 1 fight between TS and TL, but TS would have the advantage, causing Team Liquid to bowl multiple summoner spells, and then TES finding the first blood on APA. He would then make his way back to the bot lane in the 5th minute to find another kill onto Jackie, trying to extend the lead for his bot lane duo. A team fight on Drake, to find the first kill quickly, but it would be TS's Cream who would answer back with another counter kill. As both teams tried to disengage from a Drake, it would only be a 1-for-1 trade as both teams had blinking red health bars. The next major fight would happen in the 16th minute where both teams would trade 2 for 2, but due to the shutdown on Umpty, the gold would start to favor TES and they would start to extend their lead to about 2k. A team fight would take place as both teams began to position for Drake, resulting in a 1-for-1 trade. But with the remaining 4 members of both teams trying to move to the Drake, TS having better positioning, they would find Yeon, catch him out, and get an additional 3 kills. TS looked like they had the upper hand, getting 2 kills to 1 in the Autocon, but it would then be Team Liquid who turned the team fight around, getting an additional 3 kills and the bot lane tower. Team Liquid's success would be short-lived after a pick on the core JJ would lead to 4 kills in favor of TES. TES would then take time to take the Baron, and with the Baron buff, they would start pushing down mid lane. TES would ace Team Liquid, and unable to end the game right away, would take mid inhibitor. As Team Liquid would respawn, TES would finally find 3 more kills, and it would give them the advantage they would need to win game number 1. Game number 2 would start conservative, but Cream would open up the game's first blood with a solo kill on the APA in the mid lane. TS would continue their early game lead with Kanavi and Cream picking up additional kills, giving them a 3-1 kill advantage and a 2k gold lead going into the 10th minute. From then on, TS controlled the game after getting multiple picks on the Team Liquid as well as getting the Autocon buff. With their lead, they would continue to pressure the map, pushing into all of Team Liquid's lanes as well as taking the mid inhibitor. At the 26th minute, TS would bait Team Liquid by starting the Baron and then turning on them, engaging in a team fight. The following fight would end in an ace in favor of TES, who would then push into the open Team Liquid base and end the game with 22 kills and only 7 deaths, winning their first series of First Stand. Moving on to Wednesday, we see Flying Oysters versus Hanwha Life Esports. In the early game, CFO would commit 2 to a top lane gank, getting first blood on HLE, but a good run by HLE support and mid laner Zeko would allow them to get a counter kill, helping keep the game even. CFO would attempt to keep their top lane gank success, but this time it would be HLE's Peanut who would be waiting to cover, forcing a 2v2. Despite the light array from both teams' mid laners, HLE would finish the engagement with 3 kills to 0. With their eyes set on top lane and a lane swap from Doggo, we would see another engagement on Zeus, but the 3-in-1 Rumble and the perfect timing from Peanut and Viper would turn the already close 1v2 into a possible 2v3 in favor of HLE, which resulted in another 2 kills. The bloodbath would continue as HLE would continue to find multiple picks and then play the map perfectly throughout the mid-game. CFO would finally find their third kill in a 1v1 trade during a 1v4 against Zeka, but this would allow HLE's carrying support to take the bot lane inhibitor. And in another attempt to catch HLE out of desperation, CFO would try to engage on Peanut in the jungle, resulting in 4 kills and 1 in favor of HLE. In a last-ditch effort to catch Zeka out in the bot lane, both teams would collapse, resulting in 3 kills for HLE, allowing them to push down the bot lane and end up dominating game 1. Peanut would lead the game 6-2-8 and participate in 74% of the team's total kills. In game number 2, Flying Orsers would once again summon Driver into the top lane. HLE would come into game number 2 with one of the more unique comps we've seen in First Stand so far, with Zeus picking the Vladimir and then Zeka picking the Zed, which made their both First Stand debuts. 2 minutes in, Zeka would show the power of the Zed pick, forcing Hong Q to blow an early flash. The game would continue to pick back up in the 3rd minute when both junglers met, trying to contest. This resulted in a kill for both CFO, jungler, and mid, and only a kill for HLE's top laner. After both teams would split the Void Grubs at 6 minutes, Zeka would engage on Hong Q in the mid lane, secure a solo kill, and even the score between the teams. More chaos would ensue when Zeka once again attempted a solo kill on the Hong Q, but this time, jungler Junjia for CFO would be in position. He would assist Hong Q by using Kindred's ult to keep Hong Q alive, knowing that Zeka couldn't follow in on the dive. All the while, though, in the bot lane, HLE 2v1 will result in a kill on Viper, although Viper would die to the tower during this engagement. An engagement by the rail would start the fight with both Zeka and Zeus diving into CFO's back line, getting multiple health bars real low. First taking out CFO's Leona and Kindred, they would then answer back with kills on the rail and the Vlad. After that, it was a Zed masterclass by Zeka, who despite his low health bar would ult onto Doggo's Corki to lose aggro and then jump in the bush to lose vision. He would then jump out onto Hong Q's Talia and kill him while Peanut finished off the Corki, giving HLE a 3k gold lead. The game was slowed down until both teams fought over Rift Herald in the 16th minute. Again, a well-timed Kindred ult would keep the teammates alive during the Zed burst, resulting in 2 kills for each team. But it would be Zeus' Vladimir whose last 3rd kill would give HLE an advantage once again. At the 22nd minute, CFO would give an uncontested Otacon buff to HLE, unwilling to give up a Kim Drake soul in the 24th minute. CFO would position on the bot side versus 4 members of HLE as Vladimir split push in the top lane. CFO would then try to take advantage of this and catch out Misfortune, but a well-timed flash would ensure the Gragas ult did not knock her into CFO's team. After seeing if CFO start the Drake, Zeus would then start his TP to join the fight. HLE would then ace CFO while only losing 2 members, and then the 3 remaining would secure the Kim Baron soul. CFO would attempt to jump on the Baron in the last second for a steal, but end up getting blocked out by HLE. This resulted in a team fight, which went in HLE's favor and then allowed them to secure the Baron buff. The fight at the Baron would be the beginning of the end of the series, as the 7-2-4 Raid Blast Vladimir would then get a triple kill, and Zeka and Viper would get the last 2 remaining kills to score an ace on CFO. With no members of CFO alive, HLE would push the top lane and secure a convincing 2-0 victory. Zeus would end the game with a monstrous 10-2-5 KDA on the Vladimir and a staggering 32-8k damage dealt to champions. Moving on to the last match of the day, we have Carmine Corp versus Top Esports. With Carmine Corp already down 0-2 going into Wednesday, this was a must-win match for them if they want to keep their First Stand dreams alive. Game number 1, KC would start off strong with 4 kills to 0 in the 4th minute of the game. With both junglers moving to the bot lane, TS would try to get some damage on the KC, but it would be a good wall stun by Yike on the Skarner, which would allow KC to pick up the first blood and utilize the heavy CC comp to outplay TES and kill the remaining members that were in the bot lane. Yike wasn't finished yet, with both mid laners using TP to get back into lane. He would then make his way around Skarner and find a pick onto Cream, who had used their flash in the previous team fight. KC would remain strongly in control of the early game. With the game about even, both teams would set up on the second Drake. KC, having a number advantage, were able to take the Drake, prompting 4 members of TS to start a fight. But with Jackie Love not yet on his way and making his way down, Jackie would find a massive Skarner ult, which would allow his team to follow up and get 2 kills. But with Jackie Love finally entering the fight, TS would turn the fight around and get 4 kills of their own, giving them a 4-2 kill advantage for that engagement. With both teams fighting to gain control of the mid game, Yak would find an ultimate onto Jackie Love, which would allow KC to get a kill onto the AD carry of TES, but Chris will get one back for TES before dying to Vladdy, resulting in a 2v1 kill advantage for KC. Both teams would then go to play the map, with KC picking up their 3rd Drake, and after getting a pick onto Vladdy, TS would pick up their 2nd tier 2 tower. In the 20th minute, KC would utilize an unwarded bush in the mid lane to catch out Kanavi, who was making his way to the bot side river. KC then was able to pick up 3 kills in the tier 1 mid lane tower. With KC on soul point, TS would then position around the dragon, not wanting to give the soul to KC. But then it would be KC who caught out Cream to pick up the first kill, down to a 4v5. TS would attempt to flip the dragon by having 369 jump in the 4 members of KC, but with the number advantage, it would prove too strong and TS would get aced and the Drake soul would go to KC. Finding a kill on the Cream, KC would then start the Baron buff at the 26th minute. KC would zone out the remaining members of TES, but in a last-ditch effort, TS would try to take a fight. KC would then secure the Baron and easily kill 3 members of TES. With the Elder Drake spawning, both teams would make their way down to the Drake pit. But without any wards, Yak was able to get a quick pick on the Kanavi, instantly popping his GA. This would force TS to reset. After securing the Elder Drake, KC would then ace the remaining members of TES and win a convincing game number 1. In game number 2, KC would need to replicate their success, and they seem to have done so in the draft phase, getting champions such as Ivern, Ezreal, and Yone. Unlike game 1, the early game would stay fairly quiet, with only 2 kills, despite both teams looking for ganks and engaging in small skirmishes throughout the map. KC and TS would both trade uncontested objectives in the 11th minute, with KC taking a dragon and Kanavi taking the Void Grubs. The no-kill drought would finally come to an end at the 14-minute mark, where KC was able to get vision on TS red side jungle. Knowing the buff was up, they would set up a kill brush and kill Kanavi when he walked into the brush unknowingly. Although Kanavi would die to this kill rush, he would strategically place himself in the middle of the KC players, utilizing the Karthus passive to continue damage while he was dead. This would result in a couple of kills for TES and their first kills of the game. Even though with their lead, TS would not opt to contest the Rift Herald, it would end up again trading objectives and take the Drake. In the 22nd minute, both teams would position around the Drake. Kana would stall 369 from joining the Kim Tech fight, allowing KC to pick up their 2nd Drake. After moving mid, Ezreal would land his ult, prompting Leona to follow up with the ultimate of her own, leading for a double kill for KC's Celeste. While wanting to wait out the Otacon buff, KC would reset and then look for their next chance to engage on TES. Both KC and TES would find 2 kills apiece, but it would be Carmine Carp who secured the Baron buff in the end. However, those 2 kills were not enough for Vladdy, who would then use his ult to ult in and help his team ace TES, giving KC complete control going into the late game. With the Baron buff and strong split pressure from Vladdy's Yone, KC would secure the mid lane inhibitor. With 4 members of KC pushing down bot lane, Vladdy would use the open mid lane to find a massive Yone ult while looking bottom to help his team pick up 4 swift kills and then move into their base. Determined to end the game, Calice would then find an ace on the Kanavi, and KC would end game number 2 in a dominating fashion, showing to everyone that they're not ready to give up yet. KC would win the series 2-0, improving their overall record to 1-2 and keeping their first stand dreams alive. With day 3 of first stand coming to a close in phase number 1, let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket real quick. In first place right now, we have Homewood Life Esports going 2-0 in their first 2 matches, a 2-place tie for second with CTBC Flying Oysters and Team Liquid going 1-1, and in the tie for 4th place at the moment, we have Carmine Corp and Top Esports both going with 1 win and 2 losses. Let's go ahead and take a look at the upcoming matches for the remaining of the first phase. On Thursday, we will have Team Liquid versus CFO, and then Carmine Court versus HLE. On Friday, rounding out the remaining Phase 1 matches in the round robin, we will have CFO taking on TES, and then Team Liquid taking on HLE. Make sure you join us in on Monday as we go over the remaining matches of the round robin stage to see who makes it to the playoffs, as well as the conclusion of the playoff stage and see who will be crowned our first stand champion.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. I look forward to what First Stand has left to offer throughout the rest of the tournament. Let us know what you think about everything going on through this upcoming weekend, whether you're a fan of Counter-Strike or whether you're a fan of Call of Duty or League of Legends, or you're still waiting for Valorant to return back to pro play. Let us know down in the comments below. Give us a like and subscribe so that way you know when the next video goes live. And make sure you tune on back on Monday so that way you know everything that happened through this weekend and everything that is going to be happening throughout the upcoming weekend esports. On behalf of all involved, have a very safe weekend and enjoy the competition.